everyone ready?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Miss Marsh, you're good? Part 1 is the framework A, social institutions, remedy systemic violence, young. Members of groups with an alt, they must be random or prevented act which have no motive but to damage people and destroy the person, American society, women's, blacks, Asians, Arabs, and gay men, and lesbians live under threat of violence, physical violence against these groups, shockingly frequent, what makes violence a phenomenal social and just not merely, is not merely an individual wrong, but a systemic character directed at members groups simply because their members of that group, anyone has reason to fear rape, the oppression of violence consists not only direct victimization but daily not shared by all members of oppressed groups that are liable to violation, just living under stress, out of practice, stress, deprives the oppressed of freedom and dignity and needless expense or energy, void violence, social practice, everyone knows will happen to happen again. It's always a horizon of social imagination, even for those who don't perpetuate it. To great institutions, social practices encourage, tolerate, or enable the perpetuation of violence against members of specific groups. Those institutions and practices are unjust, should be reformed. B. Ideal theory poorly guides choices between imperfect alternatives. Sen. If the theory of justice is guided based on choice, the policy and identification of fully just social arrangements is neither necessary nor sufficient. If we are trying to choose between because an adult leads to know how to invoke a diagnosis that the ideal picture in the world is the Mona Lisa, it's not necessary to talk about what may be the greatest picture. To choose between the two alternatives we're facing, transcendental theory simply addresses a different question from that of comparative assessment, a question that may be of importance but of no direct relevance to the problem that has to be faced. Advocacy A. Inherency. While federal law prohibits felons from owning firearm, no such ban applies to state misdemeanor hate crimes. Hate crime laws despite the fact that the underlying crime is often brutal. Parsons. Despite growing reliance on guns to prevent tool violence and intimidation by individuals who commit hate crimes, and individuals who have been convicted of hate crimes remain free to buy and possess guns under federal and state law. These crimes should not be mistaken for low-level non-violent offenses. Many cover threatening and dangerous conduct in some states. Certain types of assault and battery committed with the bias motivation misdemeanor offenses. Hate crimes involving threats and intimidation against member protected classes often a misdemeanor. B. Tax. State and federal legislators will prohibit people convicted of misdemeanor hate crimes from being able to buy and possess handguns. Parson et al. 2016 explains that hate crimes should be banned for purchasing handguns. Only 3 states require individuals convicted of misdemeanor hate crimes for buying and possessing guns. Legislator at the federal and state level should close this loophole to bypassing laws to prohibit people convicted of misdemeanor hate crimes from being able to buy and possess guns to ensure that such individuals don't have easy access to guns. Both state and federal law enforcement would have easily ability to investigate, prosecute violations of these laws. Advantages. Harms. A. Hate crime is a massive problem. There have been over 1 million hate crimes since 2010. Parsons. 2010 to 2014, there were 1.2 million hate crimes. 51% of hate crimes were racially motivated. Religion, sexual orientation, gender were the next most prevalent category of hate crimes. B. Gun-involved hate crimes were widespread, served to terrorize marginalized communities. Parsons. Hate crimes use guns to threaten and intimidate members of historically marginalized groups. Between 2010 and 2014, roughly 43,000 hate crimes were committed in the U.S. that involved the use of threat of gun. Hate crimes have pernicious effect on not just the proximate victim but the broader community. Precisely the purpose of these actions threaten, intimidate, and terrorize the entire membership of a historically vulnerable community. The message of your hatred, the threat of a gun of dangerous extremist sends a message not only harbor feelings of bias but also willing to kill and service other ideologies. C. For every instance of racist sides, there are many more incidents in which gun is used to intimidate or terrorize spies. White supremacists are mission defenders whose primary identity revolves around fighting a racial holy war for them. Gun is very important, and when they take it out to commit hate crime, they are the ones who use it for murder for those who harbor serious prejudice but don't think of their lives. Organized means the gun is a means to put that person in his place. Criminals call these offensive. These offenders defensive react to people who feel as though they're responding to some time of disrespect of shooting them, and the type of offender who show up again and this kind of gun violence is not talked about in America. It's the type. The goal is to intimidate. The damage is psychological, no less real. D. There's been a dramatic rise in the number of attacks against transgender people and Muslims. Parsons. Review of Human Rights Campaign and Trans People of Color Coalition found dramatic increase in the rise of fatal crimes against transgender people. There were more fatalities in the first 6 months of 2015. And during all of 2014, there's also an evidence in increasing anti-Muslim crime, in which 14% increased 14% between 2013 and 2014, according to FBI data. E. Hate groups are increasingly turning to guns as their weapon of choice. Sickly. 59% of domestic terrorist attacks carried out between 2009 and 2015 were perpetrated with a gun. 6 people killed and 4 were injured after white supremacists used a gun to attack a Sikh temple. Firearms are used as a weapon of choice for hate criminals, and that weapons not fully ready for statements that hate crimes do. Solvency. A. Banning handguns for those convicted of hate crimes helps prevent bias-motivated violence from becoming fatal, mitigates symbolic threat to marginalized communities, leads to widespread violence, intimidation, fear, and strengthens the incentive to prosecute these crimes. Parsons. Legislation would address serious public safety concerns according access to guns by these perpetrators makes it more likely that the hate crime will have fatal outcome. Even the perpetrators don't pull the trigger. The use of gun and threat intimidating individual communities and represents a significant escalation of hateful conduct legislation, barring individuals convicted of misdemeanor hate crimes and being able to buy and possess guns would all create a new incentive for prosecutors to pursue these cases because involve additional evidence shared for prosecute hate crimes. Notoriously difficult. Prosecutors may be more likely to expend the prosecution if the resource to prosecute if they knew a conviction would prohibit interested individuals from maxing firearms. Mercy and just violence may be otherwise. Legislation prohibit individuals convicted of misdemeanor hate crimes from buying and possessing guns. Would also have every hate motivated treated to be strong step toward keeping guns in the hands of individuals who have proven themselves to be uniquely dangerous, destroy vulnerable communities, and skip the next card. B. Permissive gun laws are racist because they allow communities of color to be terrorized by gun violence. Gunning. There's no argument that black people live with utterly unacceptable levels of gun violence. 2010, black people make up only 30% of the population, or 55% of gun homicide victims. No surprise, black and stricter gun favor stricter gun control than whites do. Those who live with gun violence is imminent personal threat are mostly black and fail to propose equal passion and vigor, relentless pressure of gun advocates to be first lost. Number of blacks live with constant threat of gun violence. Were in fact like the Second Amendment, Trump the 14th Amendment, listening preferring the right of gun owners, which the right of black people live for fear, hatred, resistance to be a major motivation of gun control movement. Under review, one infinite regressive search for perfectly authentic subject position free of influence of ideology forces the subject to discard media public responsibility created by human vulnerability, dependence on others, narcissistic methodology of some alternatives would have us to ignore the suffering of others that last for lack of perfect confidence that we are reproducing some harmful ideology. Our response to other means that we have to gesture in two directions, both questioning our identities but also spending the question to act on our obligation to others. Bernstein dare to radicalizes the openness that he takes characteristic of responsibility decision by emphasizing the experience of the undecidable responsibility action decision here and now to be in the wheelie temporary suspend constant questioning, otherwise we would slip in action on commitment. We are also modes of action and commitment at this point, no gesturing in opposite direction. We cannot escape the responsibility obligation to response but the other given our radical rigidity. We never know when control we are called upon to respond to the other. We must always be prepared to confront now a new and unpredictable responsibilities. We can no longer be content with self-satisfied appeals to moral and political foundations. We cannot escape responsibility, decision, and choice. We have the response by the other. Furthermore, we cannot simply dismiss or ignore those ethical, political principles that are constitutive traditions. The problem is that it's a problem for which we cannot deny any final or permanent solution to live professional and easiest in which gesture opposite direction. At the same time, we keep a live distance of questioning and prepared to act decisively here and now, where we hide in faith and double lines that we are always confront. I didn't read the next card.
Yep, got it. Ready? Good.
Yep.
How is the plan enforced? You specify that state and federal governments will prohibit. What does that enforcement mechanism look like?
Yeah, so it's the same as the federal laws right now that ban felons from owning guns. It would it's enforced through background searches. So that would be the same way that this is enforced. Normal means that help felon that.
Okay, so both the states and a federal government take action. What do they do?
It's a federal law, and then states would help enforce it through background searches and other methods.
Do you pass a policy through the federal government?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, yeah, that makes sense. So both of them act in conjunction.
Yeah.
All right. The underview argument, this Bernstein evidence, what does it apply to? What does it mean?
So, for instance...
what is it? What is the infinitely regressive search for the perfectly authentic subject position?
So, for instance, some chaos would say that we have to suspend our obligations right now to only
So it applies to critique alternatives. Does it apply to anything else?
Possibly.
What?
I can't...
This seems to talk about critique alternatives that allows to force us to suspend our identity.
I can't predict every single thing that this would apply to, but I'm describing generally what the argument says is that we can't just only look internally and question to come up with some perfect clear solution. We have to do all, because that would be suspending our obligations to everyone else in the now.
That makes sense. Next question. If someone is carrying a gun on the street, how do we determine whether or not they have committed a hate crime or if they have been convicted of committing a hate crime?
So the AC applies to if a hate criminal attempts to purchase a gun. Background checks would prevent them from being able to purchase the gun.
Okay, if they get their guns through other means and they're just carrying them out on the street, what does the plan do to stop things like that?
So the Parsons evidence specifically describes that obviously the AC is not going to eliminate every single hate crime, but that it's a really important step in the right direction and will still eliminate a lot of violence.
Okay, let's talk about the solvency or Parsons evidence, or I guess the first piece of Parsons evidence. And the solvency evidence in the solvency section says that the plan leads to an incentive to prosecute crimes. Yeah. Why?
To prosecute hate crimes, because hate crimes are notoriously difficult to prosecute because there's high evidentiary burdens, etc. But if prosecutors know that the outcome of their prosecution would be securing a conviction which would prevent these individuals from buying handguns, then they're more likely to now have an incentive to do so. That's the argument that Parsons is describing.
Yeah, I understand that Parsons is describing that. Why?
Now there's a reason. Now there's an impact to actually prosecuting these people.
Well, it seems like there would be an impact to prosecuting people independently of guns. My question is, why is the plan key to prosecution?
That's the argument I just said. Well, right now it's notoriously difficult to prosecute these crimes just because there's evidentiary burdens and it's just difficult to prove someone's motivation. But if there's this new incentive, the card just explains that prosecutors will be far more likely to want to because they will see some impact to it.
All right, I'm flashing it now.
You didn't email it.
Yeah, sorry. 4 off, then case.
Sorry, that wasn't in reaction to 4 off. Thank you. I just showed out of thrown this, so.
People can't simple.
That's right. They not only can simple, they are simple.
Okay.
Alright, Torsten.
Is everyone ready?
No.
Okay.
Oh, you can keep talking then.
I'm ready.
All right. Is everyone ready?
Yeah.
Cool. First off is the counterpoint. The counterpoint text of 50 United States and Washington, D.C. should ban them, should prohibit people convicted of misdemeanor hate crimes from being able to buy and possess handguns. States historically and currently weight guns. The plan requires a sharp shift in regulatory enforcement structure. Wood 15 throughout the history of the U.S. states have been the regulated firearms conformity with the constitutional limitation of the federal government. While the federal government has enacted some laws, the states make choices on issues such as concealed carry permitting and possession. Gun control policy should be passed through the states. Passing a federal policy is inefficient and unenforceable. Quack 86. Such far-reaching proposals substitute for equity controls over state legislators. Federalism applies the state should have as much autonomy as possible. There has been limited federal law enforcement apparatus in crime. Nothing at the federal level corresponds to a street police. The need for gun control differs sharply from one state to another. Next up is the disadvantage. Criminal justice reform will pass now. It's bipartisan, but timing and Republican supporter calls that Kim in 420. The time is running out to reboot after reform the nation's criminal justice laws, and supporters of reform are making last-ditch attempt to enlist vulnerable state Republicans in effort. That's one of the few chances to enact bipartisan legislation during the election. Your chief Republican backers have courted GOP senators for weeks to show they can produce a sweeping support for the bill. They also want to show that they can move the bill quickly on the Senate floor. These changes may be winning over some new Republicans. The plan kills political capital, NRA lobby, and polarization to make it political suicide. The economists in 15 the gun laws are not about to change. One must also recognize the disproportionate part of the gun lobby. The NRA rally supporters with the fear and distrust of the government intimidates Republican politicians by turning support for the gun rights into a test of conservative values. The group diverts attention away from guns. The sort of gun control that has dramatically resulted in other countries is not about to happen in America. America is becoming increasingly polarized. This adds an element of raw tribalism to policy. Americans are becoming more hostile to gun control, and the cities that the guns are necessary for self-defense. Numbers conceal widening gaps. Political capital is key. Brody won 22 its election year in Congress. Has still record getting big bills passed Congress. While lawmakers see that 2016 is the legislative dead zone, Congress could make meaningful progress. Criminal justice reform last year. Politicians from both parties questioned the effectiveness of the CJC effort to implement reforms in business structures. And liberal conservative lawmakers alike have united around changes that reform. Advocates have been pushing senators to introduce a package that would roll back mandatory minimum sentencing, ban assault confinement for minors, reduce recidivism rates, and give judges more flexibility. There are some issues with the bill in the House. Brian mentioned the bill is one he'd like to see in the past in the House this year, and it's already passed the Senate. Obama mentioned criminal justice reform is one of the fears he could work with Congress to get something. John McConnell has not said how he plans to proceed with the existing package. Some question the GOP leader's commitment to getting it through the Senate. With Ryan vocally backing it, Obama making focus last year in the bully pulpit. It's hard to see criminal justice reform being bypassed in 2016. Reform prevents further mass incarceration. It's a huge impact that case housing, jobs, and poverty cost 15. Congress has taken historic steps to reform the nation's broken criminal justice system. Mass incarceration resonates through the U.S. Through the United States. 1 in 3 Americans have a criminal record. Over-criminalization, mass incarceration present barriers to employment, housing, education, and other opportunities. The impact of mass incarceration in communities of color is particularly staggering and as a significant driver of racial inequality. Criminal justice reform is a central civil and human rights issue of the century. Bipartisan piece of legislation recommended the root cause and impacts of over-incarceration and over-criminalization. Act takes out a number of steps to and harsh penalties. The Bipartisan Fair Chance Act would remove barriers to employment and federal government for people with criminal records. These bills are long overdue. This outweighs in terms of case 8. The point is that it affects the groups of people that are being stigmatized as racial minorities. The B point is that it prevents any upward social mobility by trapping people in a perpetual state of poverty and preventing any upward mobility, which is key to getting to empowerment, which is what the 1AC talks about. Next up is the plan flaw. The use of will in the plan text conveys uncertainty about implementation. Bishop in 11 lawyers using shall instead of will convey that something must happen and not simply that it may happen in the future. Will is derived from the one meaning to wish. Vote negative on presumption. The plan never gets implemented and presumption goes negative because the burden of proof is on the and the NIC has no job otherwise. This has to be axiomatic because there's no reason to render a decision otherwise. This is an independent voting issue. Allows the F to decide that neg office by reclarifying in the AR and getting access off of perception. The ACE point creates late breaking debate, makes the neg when impossible because the F can just speak last produces a horrible educational model centered on proliferation of nuance in the 1AR over nuance class. The B point is that a cross-section does not check because it's not binding and never has argumentative value that cannot be wasting clarification that could have been in the 1AC. Also undermines pre-round preparation, which is the foundation for productive debate. Next off is key. Our interpretation is that a topical act bans the ability of handguns to be privately owned. Oxford Dictionary defines ban as legal prohibited, and Collins defines private ownership as being owned by private individual rather than the state. The violation that the 1AC plan text specifies those who are convicted of misdemeanor level hate crimes is not appropriate. They defend the free availability of handguns with some exclusions. Jacobs 86. Nor do handgun only prohibition means eliminating handgun ownership. Exceptions are made for persons judged who have good reason for owning handguns. Police departments investigate and select individuals are typically exempted. General prohibition with exceptions differs from free availability with exclusion. Gun bans apply to everyone. Scalia and ADC bans handgun possession by making it a crime. The net benefits one limits their interpretation law selection of a certain group of people that explodes the topic there. Triple S I plan to specify the group of people type of handgun and reason of the yes. This outweighs your authorization point of research burdens. I have to research every Forest Day. Frontline those of explodes negative research burden which creates infinite out of round abuse. Abuse point is question only the answer prepared, making it a one-side discussion which turns any depth arguments that cannot meaningfully question or make the best answers if there are too many affirmatives. This point is so predictable. There is better prepped on cases allowing them to cherry pick groups of people that sidestep generic switch lines equal access to office specific groups knowing this as and shift uniqueness. The D point is topical literature instead of the picking points farther from the core of the literature since both authors discuss blanket handgun bans. The E point is field context. Prohibition in the topical literature is clearly distinct from controls limiting access for handguns. And the second is the population is not a ban but a restriction. Case 82. At the annual meeting of the American Society of Criminology, Peninsula responded by distinguishing control from prohibition, which he characterized as an extremist proposal. And we certainly want to determine what is usable, second reason, what if for serious to the bottom degree is increasingly abusive. This is what is useful is comparative and lets them get away with even not there. Their creating starts minimizes the intervention and promotes better rules with a often see if it's paradigm. No RVI is 1 point is logical. RVI say to over some because they're fair, but that's no fault because there's no proactive reason what we done. Second shows theory. RVI discouraged based on checking abuse since their abuse rates well on their abuse practice debate theory. Another case. Handgun man forces criminals to switch to deadly or weapons, substantially increasing murder rates. Copo 93T, gun misuse will switch to rifles and shotguns. The death toll might increase. The Australians continue to do the shooting with rifles and handguns. Their victims die. 72% of handgun criminals say would switch to law of shotguns. Thought of shotguns if handguns come available. The homicide rate would double. This outweighs 8 point. It is conducted field interviews with criminals, which is the best guidance questions to ask the people who best understand and participate in the situation. The B point instead, it draws on international data, proves that gun bans increase the use of more dangerous weaponry, prefer direct statistical evidence for analytical reasons, since it more closely reflects what actually happens. The plan cannot solve it, gets circumvented. The most deadly guns can be made at home legally for 10 times less and can be made completely untraceable. 14 ago seconds as somewhat untraceable with aggressive duty printing, making gun parts has become easier. The AR-15 with a handmade low receiver is completely untraceable. The AR-15 is one of the most deadly in the U.S. Several mass shootings involved in AR-15 from Aurora to Newton to Santa Monica. The Ghost Gunner can draw one low receiver per hour. The production output of a machine 10 times the cost of when asked about authorities cracking down on him, Wilson said we try to satisfy every letter of the law. Federal agencies that would regulate the gun control are severely understaffed. No solvency. Harwood to the general rule made the federal law enforcement agencies enforce federal law. The low level of government that sets the regulation will be enforcing enforcement of firearm regulation is responsible for that. For the ATF, the ATF must limit ATF is a relatively small workforce. It is hard to imagine how ATF can effectively mandate firearms, which means that you would negate.
Are you ready for CX?
Yep.
Starting on the state's counterplan, how is this different than like part of the enforcement method of the app?
We pick out of the implementation through the federal government.
Okay, what's the disadvantage?
Politics.
Okay, cool. Alright, let's look at politics.
Sure.
Is there any evidence in the dissent that says specifically that my app, which is a ban on like a small number of people, is uniquely disfavored by Republicans?
Sure. Our evidence indicates that at the NRA and Republican groups were not conducive to reasonable gun reform. So yes, while it might be a small number of people, it still gets
where in your
spun.
evidence though does it say anything about hate crime laws? Like your evidence talks about gun laws in general and like a ban on the whole population.
The evidence is not specific to hate crime laws. Extrapolations can be made in the 2 and R. Also proves abuse on T.
Okay, so the links are, the link is, so the Kim card, what is holding up the bill?
What is holding up the bill?
Yeah.
There's not been a vote on it in the status quo. The plan does have
what
bipartisan.
would prevent it from being passed?
Sure. The argument indicates that there is bipartisan support right now. However, it needs to pass through the Senate and it needs to pass through the House.
There's bipartisan support now. Why wouldn't it pass?
The argument is that there's bipartisan support, but it's tenuous because with Republican leaders, it gives the example of the people like McConnell and Ryan who are supporting the bill now, but that support is tenuous, and they have not shown full commitment.
Let's go to the plan flaw argument.
Sure.
Really? Okay. Let's look at the card.
Okay.
It says that laws use the word shall. Mm-hmm. So do you assume that in any given debate, the plan text is exactly what it would be written? like, in order to pass in the Senate?
Yes, that's what we assume in debate, that the plan text is what is
Laws
implemented.
when they're actually, like, written are, like, hundreds of pages. Clearly, plan texts are one sentence. How is that at all, how does that at all mimic real-life laws?
In the context of debate, we don't assume that the plan automatically gets implemented. We assume that the plan text, i.e. what the Congress is coming to discuss, is what is implemented, what is discussed, or what is written in the plan text. So I'm a little confused as what your question is.
Can you re-clarify that?
Sure, yeah.
So your argument is that in real life, the plan text would be exactly what's written, like, on the floor of Congress as a law to pass?
Yes, that is what is implemented.
Okay, cool. All right, so I'm gonna, like, say a sentence and ask, and I'm, like, gonna ask you if it makes sense. So, like, he was banned from the library for a week. Or, like, does that make sense?
No, because you didn't have A before a week.
Okay, he was banned from the library for a week. Does that make sense?
I guess.
Okay, so why doesn't my AC make sense as an instance of a ban?
The F, it's not a question of whether or not it makes sense. It's a question of whether or not there is certainty of implementation in the plan text.
I'm talking about I'm not talking about the plan law. Right?
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Sorry, crap.
Oh, it's 4, right?
My last one was 5, but yeah.
Oh, we can do 5 if you want. I don't care. Or you said 5.
Yeah, can you agree?
5.
Okay.
You read all these cards on case, right?
None of them.
Where do you stop?
The Harwood O2 evidence.
You don't read that?
I stopped after it.
Okay, cool. I have 135 left. Order is going to be on theory, and then in the same order you read it.
So a new off
No, like counter to.
to T.
Plan flaw.
No.
Topicality.
Topicality.
Then.
Then plan flaw. Then counterpoint to sad case. No, sad case.
Are you reading anything new?
Yeah, 1 sec.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, the document's in the order that you read, so I can like fix it after, but
Yeah, no worries.
alright. Wait, is anyone not?
Okay, yeah. I'm good.
A is a counter-interpretation. Oxford Dictionary defines ban officially or legally prohibit. He was banned from driving for a year. The affirmative may ban handguns from a subset of people. I made the Oxford Dictionary and the Collins Dictionary because these just talk about a ban insofar as I prove that my ban meets. Then next, and F is represented in topic lit. Experts uniquely say the banning subset is a ban to flippus. Ban is not legally opposition well and gun control. Literal plenty of research articles use various context of people with criminal records to ban from using guns. Most people different types of mental illness records are banned from using guns. Terms of banning substance population can be argued that it's a ban and you prefer this to the Jacobs card because this card is specifically about handguns. Jacobs is not, and in reference to the Scalia card 1, I have an example of in law that it is about a ban that's very specific to the AC. The hate crimes prevention act with denying gun to those who have committed hate crime. They bill just proposed in the House of Lee. While federal laws already bar a felon remote against of the hate crimes prevention act with extend firearm bans. Person convicted of misdemeanor hate crimes. This means that I also have a law that an example of a law that's also banned. And the Cates card is is not a general use definition. So you prefer my Oxford Dictionary. Then, and in terms of accuracy, Trump's fairness and education, they introduced T to be their arguments that I have to adequacy within the bounds of the resolution to bring the resolution correctly settles that debate if they wanted to argue my topic obviously was unfair education, so they should introduce theory debate non-debate for semantics over pragmatics. Then, specifically, first, on their group their limits, research burden, predictability, and topic lit standards. The fact that I have solved the advocate means I saw this is clearly grounded in the grounded in the topic lit. I also have experts that say that this is a subset of the topic lit, and my own standards. One over limits of act cannot specify a group of people which banning that is limited to a very small number of bound claims. Only actions. This means that negatives rarely impair the half only gets one case grounds fairness because there is a reasonable ability to two. And I also solve for field context. I solved the advocate. Also I solve for also clashes isn't necessarily good if we have to run the same two plans the entire topic because we can't change the agent. So this is better form of debate. Then go to plan flaw. Plan flaw. First argument 1, the point of plan text describes the policy. It's not the policy. The bill doesn't Congress are hundreds of pages filled with jargon. This doesn't purport to be the exact policy. Second, normally means Congress says that the advocacy of the bill doesn't have to be linguistically conform to the bill, i.e. use the best wording in order to pass it, even if it's not exactly how it describes three field cells. And then next on the go to the counter plan. 1 crossed by the Parsons 2 card under the plan text, which is the plan text, which is explained why state and federal government working together is uniquely key. So perm. Then go to the dissent. 1, the criminal justice being named compromise on the mens rea requirement to pass, but it's not clear how that will be accomplished by his own author means it's not going to pass Kim. The two damage will also resolve differences on the issue of mens rea law changing criminal intent. Senate bill doesn't include mens rea reform because it's an non-target Democrats. House Republicans demanded that it be part of an criminal justice package. Second, criminal reform will not pass because of politicians' competing goals. All men. It's not clear whether the chamber will move first. Raft narrow bipartisan bills have been introduced in the Senate, including a measure to address mandatory minimums, introducing Illinois Senate determined Utah Republican Mike Lee, bill crafted by the Republicans John Cornyn and Democrat Sheldon Whitehouse that addresses prison re-entry. The House of Bay closed on a single ambition bill authored by Republican John Tunbresser and Republican Deputy Bobby Scott. As a result, the unanimity on the display now can ultimately be derailed by clutch bills competing goals and bureaucratic hurdles can be combined to stifle progress and divided Congress. Number of different bills will assert their rights as a familiar source of negotiations. And on the impacts, the CGS bill has been watered down in important areas, means it doesn't have a huge impact. Kim, his own author, conservatives began publicly rebelling against legislation changes since those concerns were made. Public bills all revised several sections in the legislation section could bill enhance mandatory minutes for those convicted under arm has been eliminated. Meanwhile, the bill says the changes are cut the card at. Meanwhile, then go to the AC. Okay, first, You can extend the Parsons card, but so you can extend the Parsons card says that even if I don't solve 100 cells, it's still going to be better than it is now. Second, the Cobble card. The Cobble card assumes a ban on the entire population. My Parsons card I just extended also says it's going to be a ban on a very small amount of people. There's no way that there's no way the AC could trigger an entire an illegal market that the Cobble card talks about because the Cobble methodology is based on a ban on the entire population. Then also on the Hardwood card, the Hardwood card says that using only the Fed isn't enough, but extend Parsons says I use the Fed instead, which solves that. Also the Kerr card, the Kerr card doesn't matter because Parsons says that it's
Okay. 5 minutes starting now.
Would you mark the key card you just said?
the king card on the cassette. Meanwhile,
Okay. So the only pieces of offense that you read on Topicality were
okay, well,
the over-limiting
okay,
argument.
so first I read the Oxford Dictionary, then I read de flippis definition,
Yeah,
then I read the lead definition.
Yeah, I got the
and then
definitions,
I read
just the
over
offense.
limits, and then I also turn
The clash argument, right?
Yeah, but I also make arguments on that I solve for limits,
Solvency
flexibility,
advocate checks.
topic, lit, and field context.
Is it solvency
and
advocate
ground.
checks?
Well, my definitions check. I have a solvency advocate, and the definitions I read in my own shell are from experts in the field that demonstrate like field context and limits and all that.
Okay. Got it. be counterplan T, and then I guess if there's time, the disadd, the case, and the disadd.
Sorry, you said counterplan T.
Yeah.
Okay.
No new cards. So. Okay. Okay, is everyone ready?
Yep.
Not going for the counterplan, it was conditional. Permutation or just a test of competition. She did not ask the status of committee. She did not allow for new to theory. Topicality, as an overview, definition for topicality must be applied to the specific wording of the resolution. Our interpretation is that a topical alpha span the ability of handguns to be privately owned. The wording of the resolution does not say that there some sort of thing ought to be banned, but rather it says that there should be a ban on the ability of a handgun to be privately owned. There, the impact is limits. There are 300 million people in the United States, which means that there are an exponential number of affirmatives. Their interpretation justifies us banning handguns for people on the terror watch list, for example, or mental health patients. There are a number of gangs, ex-convicts, loyalists, Minutemen, serial killers, or alcoholics, etc. Limits outweigh a point his research burden that creates infinite out-of-route abuse because I have to research every affirmative where they can predict possible negative positions, which comparatively skews around in favor of the negative. The basic point is that it also kills class because the discussion becomes one side since only the affirmative is prepared because they force us to debate generics, especially true when their affirmative is so small that nothing possibly links. The C point is predictability. The alphabet better prepped on cases there are allowed to cherry-pick groups of people, and solvency advocate does not specifically check because exponential groups of people mean there are infinite possible abilities. Also, it doesn't solve any of our abuse. Yes, so there exists a solvency advocate. There are probably solvency advocates for banning people on the terror watch list, for example, because it's being debated in Congress, but that still categorically excludes negative ground because nothing links to it. The app becomes literally uncharitable, skewing any form of discussion. The D point is topical literature. The Africans have to pick plan for this from the core of the literature. Groups that obviously affirm they can pick groups of people that is on the terror list, which was above, which kills equal acts and offense because by making it impossible to indicate the field conduct standard was dropped. The case evidence indicates that bans over certain groups of people is a form of gun control rather than gun prohibition, which is the same field conduct controls the internally to any forms of offense, and specifically pre-round prep because it's the only base we have going into the round. The ground standard was completely conceded coming out of the 1AR. The science draft takes out politics and constitution arcs, which are coordinated around. There are two distinct approaches to gun control. The too many guns approach, which seeks to reduce reduce gun ownership rates by banning the ability of the gun to be prevalent and to keep guns away from dangerous people approach, which uses background checks to keep guns out of the hands of people who use them dangerously. The plan is not a prohibition on a group of people, which is negative ground. If it's better to target one group than the whole population, then the negative should win. They say that they meet the definition of ban. Couple responses here. The first is that for the framing issue is that words are defined in relation to other terms, which means that you ban people from owning guns, but the argument is that the ban has to be on the ability of a gun to be privately owned, which is distinct. So it does not matter if you meet the definition of ban in the after, because our interpretation for the clarification on the ban is the ability of a handgun to be privately owned. Second is it doesn't solve any of our offense. Banning cigarettes would be consistent with their definition of ban, but doesn't mean you're topical under our T interp. Third is that you violate your own definition of ban, because yes, a ban is a legal prohibition, but your example, which is he was banned from driving, is a ban on a person, not a ban on a gun, which our interpretation indicates is distinct. Now, their offense. They say we overlimit. The problem is that they have conceded that our interpretation provides a reasonable case list. You can expect municipalities or states to still be my interpretation. For example, you can have a Supreme Court overturn Heller to reinstate a ban in DC, or you can spec a type of gun like advanced plastic guns. Now, here are a few topical acts under our interpretation. The first is loyalist minimum, and the second is Harvard West. The possible asset they can read. The first is the loyal minimum, and the second is the IPV affirmative that Harvard West reads. The third is Lindbergh's talking affirmative. The fourth is terror watch, which is debated in Congress. The fifth is David Mintz law enforcement affirmative. There are a number of affirmatives that are topical under interpretation are endless, specifically when you could specify a group of people that makes negative pre-round preparation literally impossible. We do not overlimit. We go for a reasonable case list. First, you can specify a group of people, specify a type of gun, which solves the entirety of your offense because there are no generic debates. Second is that you can defend a specific region. For example, you can defend on things like college campuses or reinstate the gun ban in DC, which solves the entirety of your offense because there is no repetition of the types of debates that we would be having. Their question does not apply. One is that our interpretation lets them specify regional governments and types of gun, which allows them more access to different areas of literature, which solves their overlimiting standard and non-unique class. Second is that they force a debate about generics. We had to read things like the state's counterplan in politics since they deny access to key ground because no one thinks that people who have hate crimes should have guns in the first place. And the question is just about blanket prohibitions and self-defense. Third is that ground link turns class to class requires a two-sided discussion rather than the preaching to the choir. Line by line. I already answered their definition of ban. They still violate it because it's in the context of banning people, not banning guns, which is what our interpretation differentiates. The DeFilippis argument also bites back into this. Yes, they say that a ban categorically, they say that people can categorically be banned, but that's not the question of the resolution, because the way that we interpret the resolution grammatically is that the resolution is a question of whether or not people, a gun, should be able to be privately owned by individuals, which means that which means that she would still violate because she specifies for a specific group of people. This also takes out their semantic first argument, because we have a different grammatical interpretation of the resolution, which means that the tiebreaker here should be the pragmatic argument. We already answered their over-eliminating standard. We allow for a reasonable case list, such as a type of gun or a region, which means that it solves the entirety of offense. You say we create bad forms of clash, but once the point is a topical version of the app solves, that was explained above. Second is that you can still garner specific advantages, but you must defend a blanket ban which solves the entirety of your offense. Now, your answers on my show. Okay. Your we evidence does not apply. It's a ban on a certain group of people, which we contextualize not as a form of exclusion, not necessarily as a prohibition on the ability of a handgun to be owned, which means that it's distinct. We already answered this semantics first argument because we still have a semantic interpretation of the resolution that is correct, that was conceded as being correct, but we still have a pragmatic benefit that was conceded in the last week, i.e. the ground standard. They say with the ground standard, they say solvency advocates check. We already answered this above. There are still solvency advocates for an infinite number of affirmatives, and just because it's in the literature does not mean that it should be a part of the debate. We have one specific abuse of how certain forms of ground that we could have read against the whole Rizap were excluded by her affirmative, which means that there's still abuse. They say that the definition's checked, but we have already you violate your definition of the definition of ban, because the question of the ban is not whether it should be on a person, but rather on the gun, which is fundamentally distinct. The valid story is pretty clear and key here. We have definitely one offense. Topical versions of the app destroy her counter-interpretation because it means that she has no offense. There's only a risk of the ground is said. Our grammatical interpretation is still correct. The question is on what should the ban be applied, the gun or the person, which is the negative of winning.
Alright, starting 135. What's the distinction between my app and like the Harvard Westlake app about IPV, other than the fact that who it applies to?
There's no distinction. I misspoke.
Wait, in the list of things, you said Harvard Westlake IPV.
No, I know. I misspoke and corrected myself. Those are not topical apps under our interp. Those are apps that you justify. I misspoke in the 2NR and then I corrected myself.
So what other apps don't count? Or like, okay.
Are you asking for the case list or apps that you justify?
Okay, so how are any of the definitions in your shell about like the ability of a handgun to be owned?
We contextualize what a ban is and what private ownership is. Our interpretation of the resolution is that there must be a legal prohibition on the ability of a handgun to be privately owned.
What does that mean, and what's the distinction between that and who owns it?
Because you don't ban private ownership, you just ban the certain groups of people from being able to own guns.
What's the distinction?
It seems like it's a question of who the ban is on.
The only distinction is whether it applies to everyone or a subgroup.
No, it's completely different.
Like an artificial distinction.
It's not
it's not
artificial.
Applying to a group or everyone. Then
it's a question of who the ban should apply to. Under your interpretation, you ban I'm explaining. You defend a ban on a certain group of people from owning guns, but you don't defend the ability of a handgun to be privately owned. The reason why you violate, I understand. The reason why you violate is banning the ability of a handgun to be privately owned means that no one can privately own handguns. Banning a certain section of the population from owning guns means that other people can own guns, but that doesn't deny that doesn't ban the ability of handguns to be privately owned.
Okay. So, okay, cool. Well, I'm like, time's up, but he's not. Okay, cool.
Was there a question while I was out of the room that wasn't a clarification question?
No.
No. Okay. It's gonna be on theory. Yeah, it's gonna be on theory and then on case. Alright, is anyone not ready? Okay. He tries to make the argument that a ban only applies that a ban has to be a blanket prohibition, and so if it's not, then it has to apply to the ability to own something, not the people. This argument makes literally no sense, and if you're even somewhat confused on the argument, don't vote on it. Let's look at my counterinterp. First, you can extend my counterinterp, the Oxford Dictionary definition of a ban, which clearly explains that a ban can apply to a certain amount of people. The fact that a ban is able to apply to a certain amount of people means that my app is topical. His argument the first part of his argument is that it can apply to a certain amount of people and that it can only apply to objects. Then within it, then I would have to prove that that handguns have the ability to be banned. But then you can also extend the deflippits card, which also very clearly explains that handguns can be banned. Handguns can be banned from certain amounts of people, and that we have the ability to ban only portions of only some handguns, i.e. those belonging to some people, which means that I'm still topical. His argument is that his argument is that a ban applies to everything, and if it doesn't, I would have to prove that a handgun can only be banned from some people. My argument is those are basically the same thing. He's just phrasing something in the opposite way. You can clearly ban a handgun from a certain amount of people. That's the same thing as the ability of handguns to be privately owned. The AC of it is an instance of handguns being banned in certain instances. It's very clear, and also you prefer the deflippits argument to all these sources because it's a college professor that's an expert on this topic. It's a journalist on the topic of gun ownership that's clearly discussing in the debate context how it makes sense. Even grammatically, if it doesn't make sense, he doesn't go for grammar first arguments. That's not one of his standards or one of his voters, so this is a reason why you prefer my field context. One of his standards is field context. I have a stronger strength of link to the field context and the fairness arguments because I have clear authors that say that my AC makes sense under the definition of the ban. That's the deflippits card. Also, the lead card very clearly shows that my AC is an example of a law that could be passed as a ban on handguns, but that's on a subsection of people. It's still the ability to ban handguns in some instances. It's very clear that my AC, that my counterinterrupt means my counterinterrupt proves that a ban can apply to some handguns. It's very clear. It's very clear. So I have the strongest strength of link to fairness because I've proved semantically that I uphold the resolution. He says that we don't need to. He says that we don't need to look to. Okay. Also specifically, I answer the ground standard because I already proved that he would over limit. So this position would be read on the neg if it wasn't read on the app as a pig, but it's better that the app has this ground because of app disadvantages. Overview to the round. You vote on the fact that I have definitions that handguns can be banned in certain instances. Those are my field context specific definitions. Thanks.
I'm gonna use the rest.
rotate. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4.
Rotate. That's my Monday bed. Modular bed. Just like. So tell me how your week was.
That's right.
Would you have these pictures?
Yes. I like to decorate my apartment with images of human suffering. Makes my life feel good by comparison.
There's a book I saw in Romans. It was like the encyclopedia of like terrible, awful things. Like all the massacres throughout history.
Yeah. I once our library like culls books and like the books that are culled that just stick out for people to take. And one of them is the Encyclopedia of Asian Culture or something like that. I like the idea that could be in cat. I love, frankly, all encyclopedias are an impressively ambitious project to me. What's in this book? Everything. Yeah. Every single thing is in this book.
Is that where you got the lives of black folk?
Yeah, it is actually.
Good decision.
Yeah. It's a 2-0. Well, you know who you voted for. Like, don't look at me like that.
Negative.
Oh, did you? Yeah, for the negative. Did you want me to announce?
Wow.
It's a 2-0 for the negative.
I just think there's a whole lot of unanswered offense from the 2NR. In the 2AR, you really go for like, my app makes sense. This is how people talk about a band, and I think the Philippus card is actually quite good, but I need to know what the impacts of those things are. So yeah, you have better field context, but how does that weigh against his ground, limits, predictability? I mean, all of these arguments. So I think I don't end up looking at the cards and comparing them because I just don't think that is relevant, even if the AF is better on field context and has slightly better definitions. There's just all this stuff that is in the 2NR that doesn't get answered. So, for example, you force the neg to read generic arguments because there just isn't enough topic literature to discuss the AF. He says it's obvious that people who commit hate crimes shouldn't have handguns. What am I supposed to say against this AF? And I think you need to have an answer to that of what the possible neg strategies are. And then he also gives a lot of examples in the 2NR about all the AFs that this interpretation would allow, and there's all these ridiculous AFs, and he names Lynbrook's and Harvard Westlake's and Loyola's AF, and they're all just unfair. I'm not sure that's true, but there's just not any pushback from the AF on that. So the neg can't prep, even if they could. There's not a good strategy against the AF, and I think that's more important ultimately than the close-ish common usage or field context debate. That's pretty much it. One thing he does say is that even if this literature and field context is important to talk about, that you could read a hate crimes advantage and not read the plan text, and we could have the same discussion. So this sort of topical version of the AF argument is in the 2NR. I will say that 2NR was kind of hard to follow.
Yeah.
I thought that was my biggest criticism. Argumentatively, it was fine, but you kind of like, I'm going to answer.
Yeah.
It's weird. You have this big overview. I like that you extended all your offense first, because you're like, let me get that out. Here are all the reasons to prefer my definition, and then do the line by line. But you do these things where you're like, I'm answering your counter-interp, but then I'm going to line by line it later, and it's just It's just a mess. And you are very repetitive in this speech. You make the same argument about banning people versus banning ownership, like, I don't know, maybe 7, 8, 9, 10 times.
Do you think T was the correct 2NR choice?
Well, okay, so plan flaw is silly, but there are only 3 answers to it. I mean, I don't know, there's not a lot of offense. Like, these are intuitive arguments. The plan describes a policy. It isn't the policy itself, but it's not offense. It's not a reason why I shouldn't vote on plan flaw or be bad to do that, or why it's good to have the plan text written the way it is. So you probably could have extended that for 2 minutes and cut out, or even a minute, and cut that time out of T by being more efficient, less repetitive.
Okay.
Going for the dis-ad, I don't know, she reads a bunch of cards back at you from your own author that are probably true, like the watered down, not a huge impact case outweighs. So yeah, I think if you think that your evidence on the case isn't very good in the context of the plan, then yeah, definitely going for T is the
Okay.
best option. But I think you also could have gone for theory.
Yeah.
Yeah, I largely agree with Bob, but just to add any for me, to clarify the difference between gun control and like a ban would have been helpful along with your definition. Like you're just adding to a segment of the population that we already do. Like some answer to that would have, for me, made the 2AR more persuasive.
Yeah.
Can I ask what you guys think about this interp? Because like these debates are always super messy, and it always seems to me like this is just a like over spec argument, not a T interpretation. Like, do you guys understand what the T interpretation is?
I mean, I
kind of confused. I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying, like, from the perspective of her 2AR strategy, it seems like her argument that like this is not coherent T interp. That means that like my interp is.
Well, I don't really, I didn't understand the confusion. To me, it makes sense. I mean, the neg is saying we should ban the concept of ownership over a handgun, not ban.
But what does that mean?
I think it's like the grammatical problem is like how do you treat a mass noun like private ownership? Like if you can have subsets of private ownership as opposed to like
Maybe.
having
I don't think
ban
the neg
all
says
private
that.
ownership.
That would be
No,
interesting, but
yeah,
I don't
the
think
neg doesn't say that. Like
That's what I'm trying to figure out. Is like what is I just don't. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Private ownership of handgun. Like
ownership, just
I mean-
any ownership, just
I
any
know, but
ownership of handgun.
But why? I mean, like, yeah, that's the question, right? It's like, why do you have to assume like all private ownership into the?
No, I don't think. Okay, I guess.
For me, it's like a subgroup of individuals. Like to ban a particular group, to me.
Right. I mean, well, so that's what I mean. Like, I could understand a theory argument that just says that,
Yeah.
and then all of his offense like does link to that theory argument, but I just don't understand it as an interpretation of the topic.
Well, okay. I guess I'm gonna agree with you that I don't think there's a difference. Everything that the neg is harping on, the difference between banning people from owning versus banning ownership, I'm gonna agree. I don't think it makes a lot of sense because when you ban ownership, you're always banning it over a class of people. It's just a question of whether it's all people or some other people. It's just a difference of scope.
Yeah.
But I don't think that makes it not a T argument because I think you could say that a ban should be interpreted in this broad sense instead of in this smaller sense. So maybe the ownership argument doesn't make sense, but that doesn't mean it can't be a ban argument. So
I guess I don't follow that. I mean,
So maybe a ban, maybe it makes more sense to think of a ban in a broad sense and just forget private ownership. Like the idea of a government banning something generally is discussed in topic literature in these broad terms.
okay. That still seems just like a can't spec argument.
Okay,
It's
so-
a T argument.
So yeah, let's say it makes more sense as a spec argument.
Yeah.
Do you really think that affects the offense to the interpretation?
Well, so no. I mean, I guess I'm asking about if a good strategy in the 2AR would have been to argue, right? This is not a T interp. If we're talking about topicality, then the correct interpretation of the resolution defeats the fairest or most educational interpretation
Okay.
of the resolution. You see what I'm saying? Like, I don't disagree.
Yeah.
She's
I think that would have to
conceding
be
piles of offense in the 2AR.
Well, I think that would have to be heavy in the 1AR. But also, even if
she reads like grammar.
it's kind of yeah.
Always pragmatic.
Well, she does, but I don't think there's a lot of it. There's just like a one line that's like we should prefer the semantics. Yeah, it's like a one line block that she reads. I think, but I'm also not persuaded that this whole like the distinction between theory makes a lot of sense because it's kind of a gotcha. You should have read a theory interp and not a T interp for your standards that you read. Can't the 2NR just be like, okay, fine, interpret my interpretation as not a definition of the topic, but instead a theory argument? All my offense still applies.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I understand what you mean by that. I mean, I guess it seems like.
You're saying like that, like the Topicality issue is unnecessary to make
Right.
the argument, and there's not a whole lot to be gained from
So,
Well, I mean, I
making
get.
the issue, or
I mean, I guess. Well, I guess that just seems like that seems like a pretty bad shift in the 2N. Right?
Yeah,
Because
you could
like
say-
if your offense doesn't link to your interp, and then you're like, never mind that.
but the interp obviously would imply, like, it doesn't matter if it's a definition. It doesn't seem to matter a lot. We're still going to have the same debate. I think what maybe you should do in the 1AR is have this like topicality or semantics first, and then say, if an app is topical, that also answers the spec question. We should prioritize determining like what the words in the topic mean, and then let the theory interps follow from that. And then that's like a big
Yeah.
thing.
I mean, there's piles of arguments you can make against the standards over there, so I'm not denying that. But like,
yeah, I mean so completely unrelated, my like personal view of the argument. I think that the D. Philippus evidence makes sense and there's topic lit about it, but I have not seen a convincing explanation for what the neg is supposed to say against this app or the IPV app. I just, and people are like, oh Bob, you're like a lazy researcher, our team has lots of strategies. Well yeah, sure, there's stuff to say, but it's not great. I mean, people who commit hate crimes shouldn't have opinions, right?
I don't know. I mean,
Like,
I mean, I don't know. Like, it's hard to answer. It doesn't seem like a great. Like, I mean, boss has counter plans and this politics. And stuff, like all those arguments.
Well,
also, like Harvard Westlake had case in it. Like they had all those terms very specific about hate crimes.
Yeah, I know. Hard to answer isn't the best T argument, but it gets my intuitions going a certain way in these
I
debates.
mean, the other argument I think we should be making in this debate too, is that like all the counter examples of the different cases that can be run into this interp disprove the like unique. Like the only argument is that there's infinite spec. Like all the lists of counter cases seem to also be infinite, right? Like you can spec a region and an agent and a type of gun, and it's like that's
No,
the
I
same
didn't
thing.
think that was a particularly strong argument on the net.
Yeah, well, the app's in a tough, or the neg's in a tough spot because they want to say that we can have really specific, like high clash debates, but only these other kinds that you didn't.